Wow, what an episode that was. Episode 8 of the final season of Succession, titled America Decides, has just been released, and it was hands down one of the best in this season, which is incredible to say, because week after week they do just keep getting better. Focusing on the important election that has had a constant drumbeat and rhythm throughout the show, in this episode we saw political differences collide and the morality of decisions and the influencing of history be used for personal gain. Something the Roy heirs even seem to find quite difficult, having the weight of it on their mind. With division well and truly being formed and all of the information now being out there amongst the siblings, let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this episode. So let's get into it. Here is Succession Season 4 Episode 8, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. I almost don't even know where to start with this video, as there's so much to take away from it. Let's start with Kendall. Kendall had a particularly interesting arc in this episode. Within the past few episodes, we saw him exhibiting sides of his father and the fact that he felt as though he had the killer instinct that he never said that he would have. However, in this episode, we saw a slightly more reluctant to kill side to him, but he did ultimately do it. Kendall was deeply against Mencken and his political views. He had a personal connection to being opposed due to his daughter and fearing for her safety in a country that was run by somebody who was on the far right wing, especially considering that there had been reports of extreme behavior being carried out. Yet even though Kendall was acting as the head of a news corporation and had the control to be able to influence viewers and report on it, maybe even getting it to swing the other way, he was putting himself first and his own personal gain. We know that Kendall wanted to be top dog of Waystar and be running the company on his own, something which we saw him even admit to Shiv, which showed just how much the weight of Mencken becoming president was weighing on his mind. But because Mencken was promising to block the GoJo deal which would allow him to stay at head of the realm, it meant that he was going against all of his own beliefs. Shiv may have said no when Kendall said that maybe the poison of Logan Roy being a bad father dripped through, but I would argue that maybe it has. Kendall has just influenced and helped a man be named president, somebody who could lead the country into a position where it would be unsafe for his own daughter to be in. That seems like bad parenting 101. So the personal gain was something that mattered far more to him. His final line being "some people just can't cut a deal for Gregg" was an interesting one. With an episode being all about deals and the making of them in order to get personal gain, Kendall couldn't make a deal to see his own daughter when he needed to. Him not being able to see her marks the division that's present in his mind and the weight of feeling as though he's let his daughter down. For those who don't know, Fikret is Kendall's driver who's only made a couple of appearances throughout the entire show's history. I feel Kendall is definitely going to be feeling the weight of his decision in the final 2 episodes. Shiv. This was an episode where we saw Shiv truly be broken. I thought it happened last week when she had the argument with Tom. But this episode showed us that she's now well and truly on her own, and such a small lie ended up spiraling into the snowball that would be rolling down the mountain, building momentum and catching up with her. Tom wasn't standing by her, Roman wasn't, Kendall wasn't, and nor was Gregg, only a man who was halfway around the world and on the line. Shiv wanted Jimenez to win the election due to the fact that 1. He was viewed as a slightly better candidate who believed in democracy and the good of the people, and also because he wasn't going to be blocking the GoJo deal from going through, which would have meant that Shiv would have had her position secured with Mattson when the acquisition happened. So it was very much against what her brothers wanted. There were no moral decisions here in rooting for him as president, because he was relatively harmless and wasn't going to be changing things that much. We saw Shiv throwing her weight around, especially with Gregg, when she found out that he knew about what was going on with herself and Mattson. But even then, threatening him wasn't enough to stop him from revealing it to Kendall after he found out that she didn't call Nate. Even though Gregg was cozying up to Mattson, he remembered what Tom said at the start of the episode about how information was like a fine wine, and he used it to his advantage. So I imagine he's going to be hoping that Kendall remembers that. Shiv didn't offer Gregg that gold. Maybe if she did, he wouldn't have revealed it. One part of Shiv's screen time in this episode that I thought was great was when we saw that she apologized to Tom, a moment where he believed that it was used for some kind of gain or a tactic, when in reality, it didn't actually seem like it was. It seemed as though it did come from the heart slightly, but who knows, it could have been to do with hoping to get more screen time for Jimenez. This was where we saw her reveal to him that she was pregnant, but he didn't look fazed to start with. This is the first time that we've seen Shiv's pregnancy be referenced since episode 4 of the show, so I do wonder what that means for the future of the character and her relationship with Tom. It seems as though she's going to be cozying up to Mattson even more, because he's the only person that she has that is remotely on her side. And even then, I feel he could end up messing her around and not being as trustworthy as he's making himself out to be. Shiv now plans on destroying her brothers, showing us that the Roy sibling divide is strong, and they could all quite literally destroy each other in the process. Roman surprised me in this episode. Considering he wasn't prepared to go on stage with Kendall a few episodes back, we saw that this time he was quite literally bossing it and had this newfound confidence of wanting to sit at the top. With Shiv being on the side of Jimenez, Kendall being on the fence for the most part, this meant that Roman was well and truly on side with Mencken, an individual that it felt as though he'd gotten quite close to. Roman did not have a moral compass when it came to who the President of the United States was, and it was best summed up with one of his final lines. Roman said, "We've just made a good night of TV. That's all. Nothing happens." To which Shiv responded with, "Things do happen, Rome." Rome wasn't aware of how large-scale his actions were, and the fact that the person he's planning on doing business with, who has promised to keep Waystar and ATN in the family, plans on changing the country drastically. It very much feels as though Roman has indirectly been working on a way of him being top dog of his own, even orchestrating the safe role for Connor with him dropping out of the election. With Mencken phoning Rome after saying how the both of them are going to go far, where does that leave Kendall? Although Kendall was fine in the end with pushing things through, it may end up coming back to bite him from a personal standpoint in relation to his daughter and his moral compass, and also from a business perspective, as he may end up getting pushed out by Roman, thus making Kendall's actions not worth it in siding with Rome. Tom and Gregg. We saw these two characters kind of go back to their old dynamic. Gregg has progressed quite a lot in this most recent season, and we saw that on Tom's most stressful day, he wanted him to go back to Gregging, as much as Gregg didn't want to, and I found that moment to be extremely funny. The use of the vibration and notification sound from Tom's phone was used so well when he was on screen, as it really showed just how in demand he was, and it did a great job at highlighting just how stressful it was for him on his first post-Logan election. Tom was also hardcore in this episode in the way that he was with Shiv, saying things like how she basically killed her father due to the stress that she was putting him under, and also not reacting to finding out that she was pregnant, even not standing by her in her time of need, and instead standing by the brothers. It was a side to Tom that I semi-expected following on from the end of the last episode, but he owned it so well this time around, and he didn't change his mind. Tom's mind is made up and there's no going back for him. Gregg, on the other hand, it very much felt as though he was Gregging Mattson, especially when he said that he'd been speaking with him throughout the election. But with him revealing the all-important news to Kendall, it showed whose side he was truly on. It does feel as though Gregg is gaining importance and Tom is slowly losing it, especially with his name being tarnished on the news following the announcement of Mencken's win. Obviously, the uncertainty of the early call is something that was made apparent, and the fact that it could come back in the long run, so I do wonder if it will. Overall review. I thought this episode was great, easily one of the best in the show. I find it hard to understand how this show can quite literally top the quality every single week. I thought it wasn't going to get better than Logan Roy's death, but the aftermath of it all has provided a sense of excitement, joy, fear, nervousness, and anticipation every single time I watch it. The stakes were high in this episode, and you could really feel it. The blind panic that Tom was in over the smallest of things, the cutting to different places all over the country, the fact Mattson was on the line, and also the fact that Shiv ended up being outed in front of her brothers. I really don't know how the show is going to finish, and I think that's the perfect way to have it, with the next episode looking like it's Logan Roy's funeral. I have a funny feeling that that episode is most probably going to be able to top this one, somehow. With Roman's grief still not coming to the forefront of his life, I feel the next one could be the one where we see the spiral that's felt inevitable. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. So, there you have it, Succession Season 4 Episode 8, Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as Endings Explained, theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @BrainPilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.